Somewhere right now, someone is quietly doing something most people would call a mistake. They turned down a promotion. They moved to a smaller apartment. They traded the corner office for a Tuesday afternoon that belongs entirely to them. From the outside, it looks like they stopped trying. But spend 5 minutes inside their psychology, and you'll start to wonder. What if they figured something out that the rest of us are too busy to see? Today, we're going into the neuroscience and psychology of people who quietly step off the treadmill. Not in crisis, not in defeat, but with a kind of deliberate clarity that most achievers never reach. To understand why some people leave the race, you first have to understand why the race feels so irresistible. It's not ambition. It's not greed. It's 300,000 years of survival programming, running in the background of your mind. For most of human history, status wasn't just flattering, it was functional. Higher rank meant more resources, better protection, stronger alliances. Your brain evolved to chase hierarchy the same way it chases food and water. Because for our ancestors, it basically was food and water. A 2019 study from Cornell University confirmed that status rewards activate the same neural circuits as addictive substances. That job title bump, your brain processes it like a hit. The bonus that funds a lifestyle upgrade that then requires the next bonus, that's the hedonic treadmill. And Princeton researchers found it keeps resetting your baseline for what enough feels like. So let's be clear. No one is weak for staying in the race. They're responding to deeply embedded neurological wiring. The system was designed to keep them climbing. For people who eventually step off, something shifts. Not always dramatically. Sometimes it's gradual, but there's a moment where the math stops working. For some, it's burnout. Dr. Christina Maslach's research at UC Berkeley showed that prolonged high-pressure performance physically reshapes your brain's threat detection system. After years of chronic stress, your amygdala begins treating your morning inbox the same way it would treat a predator. The race stops feeling like progress. It starts feeling like survival. For others, it's a moment of clarity, a health scare, a loved one's final regrets, a quiet Tuesday when they look up from their metrics and realize they haven't actually been present for their own life in years. A 2021 study from the London School of Economics tracked people who voluntarily downshifted their careers. What they found was remarkable. These individuals showed different prefrontal cortex activation when weighing money against time. When most brains see a higher salary, the reward centers spike. For the quiet exiters, that response was muted. Not absent, muted. Their brains had recalibrated. Research from the Journal of Positive Psychology in 2020 identified a specific cognitive trait shared by people who successfully exit the race. It's called temporal discounting flexibility, the ability to feel future consequences as vividly as present rewards. Most human brains heavily discount the future. A reward today feels vastly more real than the same reward in 10 years. That's why we take the promotion that wrecks our health. Why we optimize for the metric in front of us, instead of the life we actually want. But some brains, whether through genetics, experience, or deliberate rewiring, can simulate future outcomes with enough vividness to compete with present temptation. When they picture themselves at 65, burned out and wealthy, it registers as a real threat. That's not weakness. That's a different kind of intelligence. Here's what the slow-living content online won't tell you. Stepping off the ladder is psychologically brutal, in ways that have nothing to do with money. A 2018 study from the University of Michigan found that career identity is so deeply embedded in the psyche that dismantling it triggers neural patterns similar to grief. When your job title has been your answer to "who are you?" for a decade, losing it isn't liberating, it's disorienting. There's also the social immune response. Yale research on unconventional life. Choices found that downshifters face persistent social comparison anxiety. You tell someone you work part-time now, the conversation goes quiet. Not because they're judging you, but because you've just reminded them that the choices they've made might not be making them happy either. And then there's the deepest challenge. Without external achievement metrics, you have to ask yourself what you're actually optimizing for. A 2022 study from Stanford found that downshifters reported lower stress, but higher existential anxiety, because the race, for all its pressure, gives you something precious: clarity of purpose. When you leave it, you have to manufacture that clarity yourself. But for those who push through that discomfort, something unexpected emerges. Research from the Journal of Happiness. Studies found that people who prioritize time over money report experiencing time itself differently, not as a resource being depleted, but as space they actually inhabit. They remember their weeks. They notice seasons changing. They feel present inside their own lives. Self-determination theory from the University of Rochester connects this to sustained well-being. When you stop making decisions based on external validation and start making them based on internal values, intrinsic motivation deepens. You develop what psychologists call locus of control flexibility. You need less external proof that you matter, because you've done the hard work of deciding what actually matters to you. And here's the most remarkable finding. A 2023 study from the University of Pennsylvania showed that with sustained lifestyle changes, adults can literally reshape their reward pathways. Status symbols and competitive wins produce less activation. Time in nature, deep connection, creative engagement produce more. You can rewire what your brain registers as a win, but it takes time and intention and the willingness to fight against 300,000 years of evolutionary instruction. The people who quietly exit the race aren't escaping. They're choosing a harder game, one with no scoreboard, no quarterly reviews, no external signal that you're winning. They're trading one set of challenges for another. But the challenges they choose force them to build something most high performers never develop: a self that doesn't require external validation to feel whole. If this spoke to something in you, if you're already off the treadmill or standing at the edge of it, understand this. Your hesitation is not weakness. Your anxiety is not a sign you made the wrong choice. It's the cost of choosing a life that doesn't come with a template. And that cost, for the people who pay it, turns out to be worth every uncomfortable, uncertain, beautifully unmeasured moment. If you want to go deeper, my next video covers the psychology of people who genuinely need very little to feel satisfied, and why their brains process contentment differently. See you there.